Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. Well, let's start by taking a look at what happened over the weekend. We saw all of the ingredients coming together right across the state of Oklahoma and parts of Texas and into parts of Kansas for a big severe weather outbreak. Plenty of surface moisture combined with a destabilizing atmosphere to produce these storms that you see here. And some of these storms were exceptionally violent. We, of course, had a few reports of tornadoes, one of which right across the Norman, Oklahoma area, which is where the Storm Prediction Center is, and also where the University of Oklahoma is, producing quite a bit of severe weather. So we can just see the tops of those storms getting blown off here by the prevailing winds. Now, some of those storms also produce some hail, and this is a rough time of year to have hail where we're trying to do harvest or if we're doing the winter wheat planting. So we saw some of the hail here bigger than an inch. It's kind of neat to see the different growth regimes inside of this particular hailstorm, the wet versus the dry. But we saw some of these stones getting up to be 3 inches plus in diameter. So some big time hail that fell through here, plus a few tornado reports and some very strong wind reports as well. Now, one of the neat things that I saw over the weekend, this is a radar animation from the afternoon on the 21st. So this would be Saturday, and we can see here this very, very thin line of radar reflectivity, high radar reflectivity, and that was basically the frontal boundary pushing through, kicking off a very narrow band of rain and storms. I don't think I've ever seen them any narrower than this, and a few of the folks that I follow on Twitter were posting images like this, commenting the same way. So kind of neat to see that very narrow frontal rain band coming through parts of the northern plains. Also, on the southern end of this, we can actually see the combination here of an outflow boundary from the thunderstorms plus the front, kind of the cold front working together, pushing what was left on Sunday morning of those storms down here into parts of the Gulf of Mexico. I just wanted to show you some of the cool things our atmosphere is capable of producing here at the beginning of this video. Well, what did it do in terms of precipitation? Well, here's our last 3 days of accumulated precipitation. So we were basically bringing some precip here into parts of the Corn Belt, kind of shutting down a harvest. So it's been kind of off and on. We've had some decent drier stretches, but at times it's been quite wet. It seems to be wet over the weekends, which I think is what people might prefer, but this is what it's looked like. And for those folks out here in the eastern Corn Belt, so parts of Indiana and Ohio, this is all moving your way late in the night on Sunday night through Monday and Tuesday and part of Wednesday as well. So we're not talking about, colossal amounts of rain here, but this is enough to shut things down where we're getting better than a half inch over a lot of locations. Now, the front that's producing that is really bringing in some autumn weather here. This is the 24-hour temperature change valid through late in the night on Sunday night. We can see the leading edge of the front's kind of draped right in through here, where the temperature change behind it is several degrees. We're talking anywhere between 10 and 25, maybe even 30 degrees cooler than it was 24 hours before that. So this front's pretty strong. And behind that, we have some downslope winds coming off of the Rocky Mountains here from the northwest, and we've got some high wind advisories across a huge section of the Corn Belt. And my worry here is that any crop that's still in the field here might possibly suffer some damage just from these synoptic scale winds as they come through. And they're really going to be howling. This is a look at those winds midday tomorrow, and you can see the strong northwesterly flow, really blowing through those fields across the Great Plains here. So this is our big picture on Monday, what we have to look out for. Besides the temperature change in the eastern Corn Belt and the leftover rain from that low pressure system to the west, we've got some pretty strong winds. Okay, so what does the precipitation look like through the beginning part of this week? Well, as this animation continues to loop over and over, it starts late in the night on Sunday and runs us through Thursday. What we can see as the rain accumulating overnight on Sunday into Monday in parts of Illinois, but really Indiana and Ohio in the Corn Belt, and certainly down in the southeast as well, with Michigan also getting a pretty healthy dose of precipitation due to that south to north flow ahead of that low pressure system. So we got a soggy start to the week here, and it's also going to be a cool start to the week. So we don't have that strong, sunshine coming back out, giving us the strong evapotranspiration with warmer temperatures to continue to dry down those fields. So this is kind of a soggy and pesky start to the week in terms of our harvest progress. Now watch what temperatures are going to do. So we're actually going to get a couple of shots at some colder weather. This is the early Monday morning low temperatures, so you can see that we're still warm here in this part of the Corn Belt, but behind that front, temperatures getting into the 30s, but not a big frost event on Monday. But watch as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday low temperatures. Boy, Wednesday's going to be a chilly morning. We might have a first frost in parts of Illinois, which haven't yet seen a frost, but definitely cold in the kind of northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, and UP and Michigan. But watch this. Here comes our second shot of cold air. This is Thursday. See it loading up over here? This is Friday and Saturday morning. So we've got a big trough coming through the flow of the jet stream, kind of doubling down here after kind of pairing up with another feature, bringing in a blast of really, really cold air. In fact, some of the higher country here toward the Rocky Mountains, we're going to be talking about, teens as temperatures. So this is going to be bitterly cold coming through next weekend. So we start off the weekend soggy and cool, and we're going to finish the week cool again. Now, what's bringing all that in is what you see right here. This is the overall flow of the jet stream. And let's kind of pause this and take a look at what things are going to look like to start our week. So again, Monday, we've got the cutoff low down here, the broader trough feature over the northern plains, and this is why it's going to be staying cool back in this region. Now, as things move through, so this is getting into Tuesday, we can see that trough really deepening, and that's going to bring in some cooler air and unsettled weather over here in the eastern half of the country, while a huge ridge builds out west. And that ridge is going to warm things back up after a pretty wet and cool a week before this out in this region. Now, as we move forward, that second feature is coming out on Thursday. And on Thursday, we start to see the second trough kind of diving down here. And as it does so, really kind of deeply penetrate into the south. And this is what's going to be bringing in that really cold air toward the end of the week. So that's our second shot of cold weather. And what's neat is this kind of doubles back around on itself again to start off, the next week. And I'm just going to tell you, it is looking as though if you're kind of in the eastern and northeastern part of the United States, that the Tuesday night trick-or-treating is going to be a kind of a cool one, while it could be warmer than average out here in the west. But what I keep noticing here is that the pattern, at least in the short term, keeps loading up with cooler air now across the northeast. But I think that's going to shift. I think that by the time we get into the first full week of November, maybe the second full week of November, we're going to start to see ridging out on the East Coast again. And that's going to dig a deeper trough in the central part of the country, which we talked about in depth in our last video. So I guess what all this means is that we need to be expecting a highly volatile pattern, trough ridge, kind of keeping going through the main part of the Corn Belt. But it doesn't look as though November is going to be bringing any sort of a big warm bias to the middle part of the country, after what we saw so far in October has been pretty warm. Also, we got to keep our eye out over here in the Western Pacific. Each time a typhoon kind of gets absorbed in the upper level flow, it can really impact the overall flow pattern of those troughs and ridges. So I'm watching that closely as well. So again, I'm watching that once we get into the second week of November, potentially a ridge developing off of the northeast, which pushes some colder air into the central part of the United States. Some uncertainty, but I'm keeping an eye on it. Now, I got to mention this. With that trough that's coming through, we are going to see some cool enough air coming into the very, very far northern plains. So let's call this the North Woods area here. Parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP and Michigan. By Thursday, Friday, Saturday, to maybe see some halfway decent snows up here, maybe an inch or two of snow. This has been in the models for a few days now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this region for getting some snow here toward the end of October. I'm not so convinced about the stuff that you see coming all the way down here. Maybe some of the higher country here in the Appalachians, but certainly what you're seeing up here been in the last several model runs. So maybe our first kind of talk about some snow here in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Now, I want to turn our attention quickly towards South America. I've got two maps here. This one's showing the last 30 days of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal, and this one's the last 14. We've been talking about those northern growing regions being dry and those eastern growing regions being dry. And we can certainly see that in both maps for Brazil. So again, Mato Grosso is right here where I'm highlighting. We do grow quite a few beans on the eastern part of that state, and certainly been dry there, really dry over the last 14 days. But let's look a little bit closer at the last 30 days. So here's Mato Grosso do Sul, getting down into Parna, Rio Grande do Sul, and this is Uruguay down here. So we can see these southern growing regions have been wetter than average, whereas the northern growing regions, it's kind of been more or less hit or miss, really keeping things delayed. I show you that to show you this in contrast to what we're looking at over the next 10 plus days. You see the South American convergence zone is finally migrated a bit farther to the north, and this is going to be bringing in quite a bit of precipitation, several inches of rain over the next 10 days to Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, and points further to the south. And so this is kind of some of the bigger rains that they need this time of year to really help things out. Also notice the models are even bringing some of that precip into those very dry regions off to the east. So this, I think, should be looked upon favorably overall, the big picture, but this is going to kind of, I think, put a damper on the planting efforts as they're trying to really get going. And remember, they're behind this year, especially in Mato Grosso. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up this forecast video. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next Ag Forecast coming out on Thursday morning. To get Morning Farm Report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows you a snapshot of your field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for a free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield Program or for growers who work with ADM merchandisers. Look forward to talking again on Thursday.